Let's start. Okay, good. So you've got two sources, two sets of sources here. The first 3 pages are two very short sugyas, gemaras, and then you have the Shulchan Aruch, which we're going to be learning. So, again, for the purposes of the video, I did give an introduction before I switched the video on. This semester we will be learning the halachas of Chuppah v'Kiddushin, Hilchos, as they will apply to a Rav, who will be Masada Kiddushin, and will be much more text-based and less hashkafa-based, much more text-based, proper learning, if that's the right word. So, we're starting with Siman Chav Vav in Even Ezra, which is the beginning of Hilchos Kiddushin. And right away in Seif Aleph, we are faced with potentially three sugyas. I'll just spell out what they are, and then we'll go right back to the sources. We'll go back to the Gemara and the Rishonim and develop it a little bit. The 3 sugyas are as follows. There is an idea, there is a word or a halachic construct, which we find in Novi, which we find in Nach, and which you might think is very outmoded and utterly, ancient and obscure and not relevant. We will discover that it may have some fresh modern relevance, and that is the sugya of pilegesh. A pilegesh. Anybody know what the translation of the word pilegesh is? Oder auf Deutsch. Auf Deutsch, and I might say I wouldn't be able to help me. I wouldn't recognize it. In English, it's a concubine. It is.
It's the same word in German.
Is it?
I have no idea what it means.
So this is it. So let's find out what it means halachically. Okay. So it's a kind of wife. Now, what is a kind of wife? Let's see. So this
it's Geliebte or Nebenfrau in German.
Eine Nebenfrau. Okay. Right, and that is as clear as mud. And obviously, what we're interested in is this is a term that has halachic significance. It's used in Novi. We will discover David HaMelech had pilagshim, upilagsha ushma re'uma. Avraham Avinu had pilagshim. So, what is a pilegesh? We need and who cares? Why is it relevant here? We'll see. We'll discover that it may have new relevance. So, our first topic is pilegesh. Then we will discuss this is all in Seif Aleph, really. And that is, what would be if somebody lives with a woman, but not having done proper Kiddushin, and the most contentious and very real halachic issue, which we're going to deal with at some length, is civil marriages and civil partnerships. What are their status in halacha? And this has massive significance because no doubt in your careers you will at some point come across somebody who's had previous relationships, some of which might be civil unions, some of which might be civil partnerships, some of which might be civil marriages, and some of them with Jews, koyanim. There are so many ramifications. There are so many ramifications that this is something that troubles the modern poskim, the Batei Din in Eretz Yisrael have to deal with it on a regular basis, and as it becomes ever more popular, unfortunately, to go to Cyprus and get a civil union instead of, or doing a non-halachic marriage, which potentially might be worse, might be better. Again, we're going to have to discover this, but this is why this is just Seif Aleph. This is just Siman Chav Vav, Seif Aleph. These are the issues we're going to learn. Okay, so let's get started. No further ado. Our first source on our Gemara is a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Chof Aleph Amud Aleph, where I've put the arrow. Yes, Gemara Sanhedrin Chof Aleph Amud Aleph. It's only the Gemara. It doesn't really matter what the context is. We're just going to take out literally a single line from the Gemara for our purposes. V'hoksiv asks the Gemara. Vayikach David, but surely there is a posuk in which states Vayikach David oid pilagshim v'noshim b'Yerushalayim l'miluye shmeina asar. David HaMelech took, we'll just translate it literally, he took more pilagshim and wives in Yerushalayim to fill up his quota. A king has a quota of wives. What's the quota? 18. The quota is 18. we will not discuss that today for various reasons, but that's not relevant for us. But the Gemara has a very basic and very obvious question. And this is surely the question that is troubling you all. My noshim or my pilagshim? Could somebody please explain to me what on earth is a wife and what is a pilagesh? In other words, what is the difference between them? My noshim, my pilagshim. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Says Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav the following. Noshim biksuba ubekiddushin. A wife is with ksuba and kiddushin. Pilagshim beloy ksuba ubeloy kiddushin. A pilagesh is a woman who one has an intimate relationship with, but without ksuba and without kiddushin. The end.
So
That is the Gemara. And that really just sets the stage for a right royal machlokes. Okay? I think we'll do it this way. So I'm going to download to you a little bit more. For the moment, I'm just going to go through some of the main opinions, and then you're going to see how it plays itself out in the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah that we're about to learn. Okay? So, the Rambam, there is a machlokes Rambam and Raavad here. The Rambam's in a number of different places, and to make matters worse, there is at least a three-way machlokes how to understand the Shittas of Rambam, what the Rambam holds. The Kesef Mishnah understands the Rambam as follows. Kesef Mishnah understands the Rambam that the primary difference between a pilegesh and a wife is that a pilegesh, like the Gemara says, pilegesh is beloy ksuba u beloy kiddushin. And that is a special heta after Matan Torah for a melech only. A melech is allowed to have an ongoing relationship with a woman without ksuba and kiddushin. A melech is allowed to do so. A hedyot, anybody, you and me, the commoner, the great unwashed. If you're not a non-royal, so if you're a non-royal, you can't have a relationship with a woman without kiddushin and ksuba. Yes.
Would she just be a zonah?
That's very good question. Very good question. Very good question. That opens up another topic. For the moment, that's the Kesef Mishnah's understanding of the Rambam. The Maggid Mishnah understands the Rambam and says, no, that's not the point. He says, a pilegesh, it means without ksuba, but of course, there is kiddushin. There has to be kiddushin. And you're not allowed to have a relationship with a woman without kiddushin. Therefore, according to the Maggid Mishnah's understanding, the chiluk between, there is no difference between a melech and a hedyot. The difference between a woman, an isha, and a pilegesh is whether or not there is a ksuba. But kiddushin, everybody has to have kiddushin. If, however, you have kiddushin, you can have a relationship with a woman without a ksuba. Anybody could do so, and that's called pilegesh. Okay, and that's mutter for everyone. That is the Kesef Mishnah, the Maggid Mishnah's understanding of the Rambam. And then we have the Raavad and the Ramban. And they say as follows, and we're going to see these opinions play themselves out in the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. The Raavad and the Ramban says as follows, that a pilegesh is somebody without ksuba and without kiddushin, and it is mutter even for a hedyot with one condition, and that is, it becomes an exclusive relationship. She is no longer, quote unquote, available to anybody else other than you, right? So as long as it is clear that you are an item, you two are miyuchad, it is an exclusive, it's a closed relationship, neither of you are intimate with anybody else, then it is mutter, without ksuba and without kiddushin. However, to be intimate with a woman without ksuba and kiddushin when it is not exclusive, according to the Raavad, it's an issa d'Rabbanan. According to the Rambam, it's still an issa d'Oraisa. Whether or not there'll be malchus or not is a bit more complicated, and that's kind of enough. All we need to set the stage to start learning the Shulchan Aruch.
Who said that was exclusivity and not exclusivity?
That is the Raavad and the Ramban. Okay, and we're going to see now, you're going to recognize these opinions as they come into the Shulchan Aruch. And now let's start learning. That's just a short introduction to set the scene. Let's start learning the Shulchan Aruch. Okay? Now, just want to point out to you, the photocopying didn't come out awesome, I'm afraid, but maybe on the second page it came out a little bit better, because it was very hard to... Yeah, the Shulchan Aruch. No. So we're doing now the Shulchan Aruch here. This, okay?
This came out.
That's right.
Yeah.
The second side came out. You know, what you can't see is as follows. What I need to... I want to introduce you to, if you're not familiar with learning Even Ezer, it's not like Orach Chaim, where you have the Taz and the Mogen Avram, or like Choshen Mishpat, where you have the Shach and the Taz, yes, and Yerodea. Even Ezer, the two primary Mefarshim on the side of the page are the Chelkas Mechoikek and the Beis Shmuel, okay? The Cham and the Bash, as they are often known colloquially, okay? And that didn't come out really properly clear with the top. So here, let's go. Let's start learning. By the way, if you want, I can... If you want, because we are going to be doing quite a lot of learning inside. If you prefer to actually have one of these, I don't know whether the Rabbinerseminar will sponsor or not. I have to look again on layman's. I'm making a layman's order anyway pretty soon. I think it's less than €40. It's up to you. But let me know if you do. I'll be making an order in the next few days. Okay? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just photocopies. I prefer personally learning out of a sefer, but okay. And we will be doing quite a lot inside learning. Okay? You might want your own copy. Okay, Siman Chavav Sif Aleph. Let's learn. Zog de Mechaber, Ein ha'isha nechsheves eishes ish elo al yidei Kiddushin, sheniskadsha karoi. For a woman to be considered an eishes ish, there has to be proper Kiddushin. Yes? Avol, im ba'oleha derech znus sheloi l'shem Kiddushin, einoi klum. But if a man is intimate with a woman, he's ba'oleh, he has bio with her, derech znus sheloi l'shem Kiddushin, einoi klum. It is meaningless from the perspective of creating and generating an ishus. Einoi klum, it is absolutely nothing. Va'afilu ba'oleha l'shem ishus beinoi lebeina. And even if, when he was intimate with her, it was with the understanding that we are, I have to be careful how I translate these words here, because this is going to be a mevucha between the Gedolei HaAcharonim in the 20th century. But for the moment, it's translated as follows. Even if when he is intimate with her, it is l'shem ishus, for the purpose of betrothal, for the purpose of having a husband-wife type relationship. In other words, it's not a, one has to also use a clean language. It's not a casual encounter. Derech znus it's a casual encounter with no sense of commitment, no sense of having an ongoing relationship, or right? That's what we will call for the moment derech znus, whereas l'shem ishus is for the purposes, this is part of what is to be an ongoing marital type relationship. Afilu ba'aleh l'shem ishus, if he did so beinoi lebeina, privately, and surely every act of intimacy is private. What on earth does that mean? We'll have to discover, yeah, you with me? Va'afilu ba'aleh l'shem ishus beinoi lebeina, eino nechsheves ke'ishtai. She is not his wife. So the Shulchan Aruch has extended it. He started off by saying an eishes ish can only be created through Kiddushin. Derech znus, if it is just a casual encounter, it is certainly doesn't create issues. And even if it was for the purpose, so to speak, of creating an ongoing marital type bond, if it is done beinoi lebeina, as opposed to some whatever, then it's also no good. And then he goes further, so the Shulchan Aruch. Va'afilu im yichadoloi. Even if yichadoloi, even if he designates her for himself, there is an agreed exclusivity to this relationship. That doesn't make any difference. The Shulchan Aruch is taking a hardline position that even if a person decides with a woman to have a relationship, an intimate relationship, which is understood to be exclusive, and for the purposes of living together as man and wife, it makes absolutely no difference. Adarabba, koifin oisai lahoitzia mi beisai. Actually, the other way, more so, says the Shulchan Aruch, what happens is we force him to get rid of her. This is not on. This is not acceptable. This is you will say that you are committing yourself to her and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter. This is based on a Tshuva Sarosh. There's a story. We'll see whether we get to that. So the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch is pretty straightforward. Yes. Any questions? No, let's go on. Hagar, says the Ramah adds some color, some context. And this is interesting to see. Why is it, says the Ramah, and this is based on the Rosh, right? Why is it that even if Yichadoloi, will compel them to separate, wherever they have the jurisdiction to do so? Hagar, says the Ramah, do you know why? Because the bevadai boishahi militboil. Because she definitely will have busha. She will be ashamed to call up the Rebbetzin or the Balanit or say, could I book an appointment for the mikveh tonight? And say, Mrs. Sorry, what's the name? Mrs. Who? Oh, not Miss. Girlfriend X or whatever. So she's not going to go to the mikveh. Boishahi militboil. We can assume she's going, and therefore it's going to be Be'ilas Nida, which is a kores, aside from anything else. And therefore, this is not a relationship that there's any way that it can be sanctioned halachically, and that is why Kaifin, we force them to separate. Continues the Ramah. Avolim miyached elov isha v'toiveles. What would be, and this is the Raavad now, what would be if no chuppah v'kiddushin, but both the parties have decided they want to have an exclusive marital type relationship, and she will go to the mikveh. So there's no niddah, there's no issa niddah involved. So is that okay or not okay? Says the Ramah, yesh oimrim shem mutar vehi pilegesh ha'amura b'Torah. Some say it's actually, this is mutar. This is the opinion of the Raavad and possibly the Ramban. Yes, that it's actually mutar, provided you can avoid any other halachic obstacles. The most prominent one, of course, is going to be always niddah. So she goes to mikveh. They are not having relationships with anybody else. Miuchedes, she's not a niddah. It's a pilegesh, and pilegesh is mutar. Not like the way certainly the Kesef Mishnah stood in the Rambam. It's nothing to do with being a melech. He can be a hedyot. No ksuba, no kiddushin, only yichud, and she's tovel and nidosa. According to the Ramah, yesh omrim, the Raavad says that it's actually okay.
And there would be a difference between zon and now, because
they are exclusive. Right, they're a couple.
Right. So
they are a quote unquote couple.
So clear, but here the difference becomes clear.
Here it's very clear.
Right.
Yeah. I have heard anecdotally. I'm not sure if I should say this on the video. I have heard anecdotally that there was I won't say it. It doesn't matter. It's not. I should stick to the serious, to the Torah, to the serious stuff. But there is an opinion. That would mean. That's quite. I am surprised that you're not surprised. We're talking about, provided you can make sure there's no issa niddah, that a Jewish man and a Jewish woman could have an intimate relationship, according to this opinion, as long as there's no issa niddah, provided it is clear that it is exclusive.
Can he marry her afterwards?
Don't see why not. They're not doing anything wrong. It's mutter.
So
it's mutter.
So it could be potentially a temporary state, pilegesh state.
It could be temporary. It could be permanent.
She can become his wife.
She might be, yeah, she could, theoretically. But this is the opinion of the Raavad. The Yesh Omrim, no, we have another opinion. The Yesh Omrim she'asur. Some say, no, it's asur. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Nachamol. Just a second. Okay, let's keep going. The Yesh Omrim she'asur. V'loikin al zeh mishum loisihiyeh kedesha. Harambam, V'Harosh, V'Hatur. There's not only is it also it's an Issa D'Oraisa, and there would be Malchus. For what Issa? Loi Sihiyeh Kedesha Bibnei Yisrael. There should not be literally a prostitute. This is a Zayna. This is a Kedesha. This is a Kedesha. That means without Chuppah V'Kiddushin, it doesn't make any difference whether there is niddah, she's not a niddah. It makes no difference that it is miyachedes, it's exclusive. According to the Rambam, the Rosh, and the Tur, this is an issa da'oraisa. Okay, so that's the next bit of the Ramah. Let's learn the final bit, and then we'll start unpacking it a little bit. Final bit is based on a Tshuvas HaRivosh, very interesting story. The Shaila came to the Rivosh as follows. Maybe we should even do it inside. I didn't think of that. the Rivosh, Shaila came to the Rivosh from the island of Majorca, we're talking the 14th century, of a Jewish girl who was one of the so-called Anusim, conversos or Maranos, whatever word is, I don't know, it's not very, the language is always interesting. And she then has I think she, if I'm not mistaken, from looking at the Rivosh, that she actually went in front, there was a church type a ceremony, and she lived with this Gentile. They weren't allowed to obviously get married al pi chuppah v'kiddushin. She lived with a Gentile. They had I think a church wedding. Has a child, and then he leaves her. He abandons her, and she then comes to Aragon, I think it was, in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the story took place in Majorca, and then she arrives in the Kehillah with her and her son, and wants to know what's her status, what is the halacha. Yeah, that was and this is really where all of this stuff kind of starts. So let's see Zog the Ramah. Goy shenos goya, Gentile and man and woman. V'chein muma shenosa mumeres b'nimuseihen. And the similar thing would be, to use our terminology today probably, let's say a secular Jew, two secular Jews get married in b'nimuseihen, according to their customs, possibly civil marriage of some sort, a town hall wedding, maybe even a church wedding, I don't know, we'll have to see. V'nizgayeru achakach. And then they do get this geirus. Ein kan chashash kiddushin klal. So now we want to look back at their original relationship and say, what was that? Did that have any halachic status or meaning? No. Ein kan chashash kiddushin klal. There was no, that their relationship prior to the geirus is of no halachic important consequence. Umuteres lotses mimenu beloy get. And therefore, that vis-a-vis that prior relationship, it has no halachic status, and therefore no get is required. Let's just finish this, then we'll say umuteres lotses mimenu beloy get afal pi shasha imo kama shonim. Even though they lived together, quote unquote, as man and wife for many years, and they were they may be registered as Mr. and Mrs. X, known by all their family, by the friends, everybody. It was Mr. and Mrs. X, and it had a toikef, it had validity in civil law, etc., etc. No get is needed at all. Eino elok iznus ba'alma. It has the status, as far as we are concerned, as being znus, truvas rivosh, and trumas hadeshen. Two very serious poiskim. And that is our third thing. And we're going to have to see, I'll come to you in just right now, just before we see, we're going to see that actually, although here it's brought in the Ramah, if I printed out for you, we're going to see it's actually Paskind. We'll see it in the Shulchan Aruch and Simon Kuf Mem Tes. Yes?
What's the Kiddushin in Geirus? Because we say in Geirus, if they be Misgaya, it's like the...
Kotz and Shanola, Tommy.
Yeah. So what's the Kiddush? How can... Obviously it's not going to be a marriage if we say...
That's an interesting question. You're saying what's the... I suppose the idea would be how far does it go when we say kekoton shenoilad domi? If it would have, I hear what you're asking. I'm not sure I've got a good answer. I'd rather reflect on it a little bit. Good question. Good question. Very good. Because midday raisa certainly. Let's put it clear, I think it's a Tosafos in Yevamos, if I'm not mistaken. Midday Raisa, a brother and sister that are Mizgayer, Midday Raisa, they could marry each other. Midrabanon, we don't let it, but that's another interesting topic. Because they are, so I'm being mechazik your kasha. So you see that in a number of respects, they are considered to be new gufim almost, new halach, new identity. So, and let me think about that. The
Kiddushin would take effect when they would attempt it.
What? Midday Raisa, yes. Midrabanon we don't let, and that's another whole thing.
Okay.
But when we goy shenos goya, as far as we're concerned, it has no toikef whatsoever. And the same thing would be, I suppose the answer would be in a mummer and a mumeris. There you have Your question is still valid because it does say Goshen also good.
Yeah.
Fine, let's say that. Right. Lahashlom Asal let us also look at Simon. I printed it out for you. Simon Kuf Memtes. Let's turn to Simon Kuf Memtes, which is much later on in Hilchos Kiddushin. Okay. And let me give you the context there. In fact, we'll do it this way. Go back to your Gemaras. Go back to the Gemara, and here we will see a Mishnah and a small piece of Gemara in Gittin. Gittin Pei Aleph. Go on, got my own copy here. Gittin Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. There is a Mishnah. There you go. You got the Mishnah? Gittin Pei Aleph Amud Aleph at the bottom of the page. Hamagarish es ishtoi velona imoi bepundiki. Somebody's magarish his wife, and then they spend the night together in a hotel. That's the case. Now what? What does that show? And I think the assumption is that they were intimate with each other. Yeah, that's the assumption. Zog Beis Shammai omrim einot tzricha heimenu get sheni. Beis Shammai said no new get required. In other words, the fact that after the Gerushin they are intimate with each other, it doesn't invalidate the first get, and it doesn't require a new get. It's not relevant. Beis Hillel, who we're going to paskin like, of course, Beis Hillel omrim tzricha heimenu get sheni. A new get is required. If somebody gets divorced and then spends the night with his ex-wife, it seems to have the validity, the toikef, the force of a new Kiddushin, and therefore requires a new get. What's going on? What is that? What are the halachic principles involved here? Why?
So, I mean, Beit Hillel may be holding. I mean, a Pilegesh doesn't need a get because she didn't have Kiddushin.
Correct.
So probably he would hold that she has the status after when they say in the hotel, she is like a Pilegesh.
Then why is a new get required? Beis Hillel says she needs a new get.
Right, that was the other opinion, I mean, that she does not need would say
But we have these.
Right.
How are we going to reconcile these? So there's something good. So how do we put? That's what you're asking. Yeah. How do we put these concepts together? Good question. It's exactly what we need to see. So Beis Hillel says tzricha heimenu get sheni, and that indeed is how we paskin. And here we come to an important halachic concept, the principle that underpins this. Look at the first bit of the Gemara, bottom line. Omar Rabba bar Rachan, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, machloikas b'shera'uha shenivala. The machloikas is in a situation when we saw that they were intimate with each other. Now, how do we see? What does that mean? Leave that for the moment. No, it's a valid point, but leave that. Then in such a case, and here is the principle which I'm going to want you to memorize, you're going to have to know this idea. Beis Shammai is of the opinion, Adam oiseh be'ilasoi be'ilas znus, that a person is okay with having an intimate encounter, and if it's considered to be znus, okay, so be it. Whereas Beis Hillel say, and we're going to see later that this is actually elsewhere, it says chazaka, there is a chazaka. Chazal have told us there is an assumption in human psychology, in human behavior, and we actually find this in a number of different areas. If you are going to do an act, and there are two ways that this act can be framed and thus perceived halachically. One is okay and one isn't. Then the assumption is that the act is happening anyway. Then kind of, why not? Why would we not assume that a person would want to do it the good way, the right way? So you have a choice. This fellow has divorced his wife, and then they spend the night together in a hotel, right? So they're intimate with each other. So now what's going on over here? Either he's just, quote unquote, having an affair, it's not an affair, he's not married, but doing znus with his ex-wife, or they're tying the knot once again. They are deciding to get back together again, and it's l'shem kiddushin. We have a choice of interpretation, and on that Beis Hillel say, Ein Adam oiseh be'ilasoi be'ilas znus.
We're giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Correct. Yeah. We're saying it's a chazaka that a person will, generally speaking, he won't be intimate with somebody and make znus.
Especially,
Right, so that's Chazaka Ein Adam Oisa Be'ilas Nus, and that is how we pass it. Okay? Now, next point which is relevant. Go down to the line that I've underlined, and this is just something that you should know about, and that is a situation, says the Gemara, where there is Eidei Yichud, but there is no Eidei Bia. Eidim that there were Eidim outside the hotel room, right? They saw them, there was nobody else in there, and they saw them going in, and they were there for however long it is, for a few minutes, which is enough time to be intimate. Where there is a situation where there's Eidei Yichud, but no Eidei Bia. Beis Shammai are of the opinion, Lo Yomri, non hein Eidei Yichud, hein Eidei Bia. We say, so there's Eidim or Yichud, and Eidim or Yichud does not automatically mean that you have Eidim on a Bia. Whereas Beis Hillel say, and this is how we paskin, and in Yeshiva circles it will just be known as Hein. That's how it's said. Short for Hein Eidei Yichud, Hein Eidei Bia. They are deemed to be one and the same. And that's why we do Chuppah Kiddushin, we do Yichud. It has the status of whether or not whatever happens inside that's irrelevant. But there is theoretically they are alone in a room with nobody else there, where there is that potential, and that Eidei Yichud now has the toikef of Eidei Bia. And that goes back to what we said before about when Eidim saw that they were intimate. According to Beis Hillel, just having Eidim that they were alone in the room is enough. That Hein Eidei Yichud is the status of Hein Eidei Bia. Got it? Right, we now have all the background.
It's Beit Hillel.
Sorry?
It's Beit Hillel.
That's Beis Hillel, which is how we pass it. Okay, so now we are going to quickly learn two seifim in Siman Kuf Mem Tes, and that's probably all as we're going to get through today, and tomorrow, Wednesday actually, we'll then start doing the Mefarshim. Turn to the next bit that I've printed out for you. In the Shulchan Aruch, I have done the following for you. I want to explain something to you what this is. There's a set of Svarim that I purchased not all that long ago for my own learning for Hilchos Gittin, which is it's this 3-volume sefer, which is essentially it's the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, and it's a bit of a cheating sefer. It's just one of these summary Svarim. So this is a summary of the Bash and the Cham, the Beis Shmuel and the Chalkas M'chokek and the Pischei Tshuva, and I've printed that out for you. You've got that there. So turn to the Siman Kuf Mem Tes. I did Chavav for you and Kuf Mem Tes. Find it?
Yeah.
Got it? Let's learn Seif Kuf Mem Tes, Seif Hey, and Seif Vav. You ready? So this is in Hilchos Gittin. I don't know if I did maybe I did the heading, the chapter heading, the Kuf Mem Tes. Din ha-megarish ishtoi va'achakach ba'oleha einis yachidima. What's the halacha in Hilchos Gittin? We need to know. Somebody's megarish, it's towards the end of Hilchos Gittin, after we've been through the whole Seder of Get. Somebody's megarish his wife, and then he is intimate with her, or he is misyachad with her. What's the halacha? So the first few seifim discuss this idea about whether it's in fact, you know what? Let's learn Seif Aleph quickly. Follow with me. Let's do it. Shulchan Aruch. Megarish is ishtay v'chazor ba'ala b'fnei Eidim. Somebody's megarish his wife, and then he is intimate with her in front of Eidim. Brackets. Or we know that he was intimate with her because then he married her again. And this happens before she marries somebody else. Whether the original get happened after Erusin or Nisuin. Because this is a woman he was once intimate with. Therefore, our default position, we have a chazaka that what is he probably doing? He's marrying her again. U'l'shem Kiddushin bo'al v'loi l'shem zenus. That's Beis Hillel as we saw. Mm-hmm. Now the question is, this is with somebody that he was already intimate with. What would be if this is somebody off the street? He spends the night in a hotel and there's Eidei Yichud with somebody who he wasn't previously familiar with. Do we still say Chazokein Adam Eisa Bilas Nus? That's a machlekas. You with me? And that's what we're going to discuss. Okay? So we've laid down the baseline halacha in Seif Aleph. Turn to Seif Hey and Vav. Okay? Loi Amru Chazokozu. Says the Shulchan Aruch. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got it? Seif Hey. You look lost.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Lo yamru chazaka zudein adom eisa bilas bilasnus elo beishto shegirsha oy b'mekadesh al tnai ubo al stam. We only apply this idea that chazaka in adom eisa bilas bilasnus either only in one of two cases, either somebody who he was once married to, or somebody who he was mekadesh al tnai, and then went and was intimate with her. Because shahara ishtahu. It is only with somebody that was your wife. We have this default position that he's not doing it l'shem znus. And adshi yifarishu bila znus, or yifarish al tnayu boil. Avol she'ar kol anoshim, but any other woman, b'chazaka sheba l'shem znus. If a man is intimate with a previously unknown woman, a stranger, without first having chuppah kiddushin, what's he doing? Of course he's doing znus. What else is he doing? That's Seif Hey. Very important. Sivav. V'chein ish v'isha shenishtamdu ba'oinus. Ba'oinus hagzeros. V'nisu zelozeh b'chukos hagoyim. And similarly, the halacha is a woman, a man in a time when we're not allowed to marry chuppah kiddushin, or the shmad, and they marry each other b'chukos hagoyim. Civil partnership. Mr. and Mrs. X. They got married we won't go today into whether it was a church or a civil, but they married. They're married, they're legally and civilly married. And they are living together as a family. They have kids possibly. Ein choshishin lahem mishum kiddushin. What does this remind you of? Is this not what we just saw in the Ramah? It's the Rivosh and the Trumas Hadeshen. Go back over this again. Yeah. Back to Chavav. V'chein mumah shenosa mumeres b'nimuseihen b'nizgai rachach ein b'em chadash chidush klal umuteres. Why? Even though they live together, einoi ela kiznus ba'alma. So there's no argument between the Shulchan Aruch and the Mechaber on this. We see the Mechaber in Kuf Mem Tes Paskins this. Okay? And that is, so we've set the scene tomorrow to begin to look and see what the poskim now are going to say about the modern. We've still got to do a little bit of the Mefarshim on this. There's a few more bits and pieces to do, and then we'll start looking at how this works now with civil marriages.